Welcome to Whispers of Ink. I'm Machado de Assis, and now I will read one of my stories.
Let's start with the book school story, which is part of my novels collection. Chapter 1. The school was on Rua da Costa, a small two-story house with a wooden gate. The year was 1840 that morning. On a Monday in May, stood for a few minutes on Rua da Princesa, wondering where I would spend the day. I couldn't decide between São Diogo Hill and Santana Field. Back then, the field wasn't the elegant park it is today, built like a gentleman's garden. It was a wild open space filled with washerwomen, tall grass, and free-roaming donkeys. Hill or field? That was the question. Suddenly I thought to myself that school might be the best choice. And so I headed there. Here is why. The week before, I had written 2 essays, and when my father found out, he gave me a beating with a quince switch. His punishments hurt for days. He was an old clerk at the war arsenal, strict and unforgiving. He dreamed of a big commercial career for me, and couldn't wait to see me learn the basics: reading, writing, and counting, so he could place me as a shop clerk. He often mentioned successful businessmen who had started behind a counter. So, it was the memory of that last punishment that brought me to school that morning. I wasn't a good kid by nature. I climbed the stairs carefully, trying not to make noise, and reached the classroom just in time. The teacher walked in 3 or 4 minutes later. He came in slowly, as he always did, wearing soft leather slippers, a washed-out cotton jacket, white trousers with a sharp crease, and a large, floppy collar. His name was Policarpo, and he was about 50 or older. Once seated, he pulled a snuff box and a red handkerchief from his jacket and placed them in the drawer. Then he looked around the room. The boys who had stood up when he entered sat back down. Everything was in order, and the lessons began. His son leaned over and whispered to me, "So, Pilar, I need to talk to you." The boy's name was Raimundo. He was quiet, hard-working, and thoughtful, though his mind worked slowly. Raimundo took 2 whole hours to learn what others could grasp in just 30 or 50 minutes. He didn't have the quickest mind, but he made up for it with time and effort. He also lived in fear of his father. He was a delicate, pale boy with a sickly face, and happiness rarely showed up in his eyes. He always arrived at school after his father dropped him off and left before everyone else. The teacher was harder on him than on the rest of us. One day, the teacher stopped him and asked, "What do you want?" Raimundo answered quickly, his voice shaking. Then, the writing lesson began. It's hard for me to admit, but I was one of the best students in class. I once say I was the smartest. That's a humble trick that writers love, and makes the story sound better, but I really believed in my own skills. I wasn't pale or weak like Raimundo. I had strong arms and a healthy face, with a nice color in my cheeks. During writing lessons, I always finished first. But instead of handing in my work right away, I'd sit there, cutting little noses out of paper or scratching them into my wooden desk. It wasn't a smart or noble thing to do, but it was harmless and kind of fun. That day I did exactly the same. As soon as I finished my writing, I started drawing the teacher's nose over and over, giving it 5 or 6 different expressions. I still remember the surprised one, the confused one, the thoughtful one. and the curious one. Of course, I didn't know those words back then. I was just a young student learning the basics, but I somehow knew what each face meant. The others kept finishing their work one by one. I had no choice but to do the same, hand in my paper, and go back to my seat. To be honest, I already regretted coming to school that day. Now that I was stuck inside, I couldn't stop thinking about being outside. I pictured the open field, the hill, and all the free boys. Chico Telha, Americo Carlos das Escadinhas, the best of the neighborhood, the best the world had to offer. And just to make things worse, I looked out the school window and saw something amazing. High in the bright blue sky, above the Livramento Hill, flew a giant paper kite. It was huge, and tied to a long, strong string, gently floating in the wind like it owned the sky. It was beautiful, and it made me feel even more trapped than before. I sat in school, legs pressed together, holding my reading book and grammar on my knees. I was a fool to come, I whispered to Raimundo. Don't say that, he murmured back. I looked at him. He seemed paler than usual. Then I remembered again that he wanted to ask me something, so I asked what it was. Raimundo shivered once more, and quickly told me to wait a moment. It was something private. Mr. Pilar, he whispered a few minutes later. What is it? You. You what? He glanced at his father, and then at a few other boys. One of them, Curvelo, was watching him suspiciously. Noticing this, Raimundo asked for a few more minutes. I admit I was starting to burn with curiosity. I looked at Curvelo and saw that he seemed attentive. It could just be vague interest, the natural nosiness of a boy, but it could also mean something was going on between them. Curvelo was a bit of a troublemaker. He was 11, older than us. What could Raimundo possibly want from me? I grew more and more restless, shifting in my seat and whispering insistently, asking him to tell me now that no one was paying attention to either of us. Or maybe later, I suggested. No, not later, he cut me off. It can't wait until this afternoon. Then tell me now. My father is watching. It was true. The teacher was looking straight at us. Since he was stricter with his own son, he often kept an eye on him to make sure he stayed well behaved. But we were clever too. We buried our noses in our books and kept reading. Eventually, the teacher gave up and turned to the day's papers. 3 or 4 pages he read slowly, chewing over every idea and emotion. Don't forget we were near the end of the Regency period, and public unrest was high. Policarpo surely had a political side, though I never managed to find out which party. But the worst thing he could bring to us was the wooden paddle. And there it hung, from the window frame on the right, with its 5 terrifying holes. He just had to lift his hand, take it off, and wave it with the force of habit, which was considerable. And then, maybe from time to time, political passions would overpower him enough to spare us a beating or two. On that day, at least, it seemed to me that he was reading the newspapers with great interest. He would raise his eyes now and then, or take a pinch of snuff, but would return quickly to the papers and read them carefully. After some time, 10 or 12 minutes, Raimundo put his hand in his pants pocket and looked at me. Do you know what I have here? No. A little coin my mother gave me. Today? No, the other day, when I had my birthday. A real coin? A real one. He slowly took it out and showed it to me from a distance. It was a coin from the king's time. I think 12 vintanes or 2 tostoinzi, don't remember exactly. But it was a real coin, and seeing it made my heart race. Raimundo gave me a pale, weak stare, then asked if I wanted it for myself. I told him he was just joking, but he swore he wasn't. But then you won't have it anymore. My mother will get me another one. She has many coins left by my grandfather, inside a little box. Some are gold. Do you want this one? My answer was to secretly stretch out my hand toward him, after checking the teacher's desk. But Raimundo pulled his hand back and gave a yellowish, sour grin. Then he made me an offer a deal, an exchange of favors. He would give me the coin, and I would explain a point from the grammar lesson to him. He hadn't understood anything from the book and was afraid of his father. He finished the offer by rubbing the coin against his knees. I felt a strange sensation. It wasn't that I had a mature idea of virtue, like an adult. Nor was I a stranger to the occasional childish lie. We both knew how to trick the teacher. But this time, the offer felt different the way he put it. The trade of money for a lesson. A clear, open, direct exchange. Plain as day. Give and take. That was what caused the strange feeling inside me. I just stared at him, not knowing what to say. You can understand that the lesson was tough, and since Raimundo hadn't learned it, he was trying a trick he thought might help him escape his father's punishment. If he had simply asked me for help, I probably would have done it, like I had done before. But maybe he remembered those times, and was afraid that my will was weak or tired, or that I wouldn't teach him well enough, maybe even that I had taught him wrong once or twice by mistake. Maybe that's why he made the offer. The poor guy was counting on my favor, but he wanted to make sure it worked. That's why he reached for the coin his mother had given him, the one he kept like a treasure or a toy. He took it out and rubbed it between his knees in front of me, trying to tempt me. Truth is, it was a beautiful coin, clean, white, very shiny. And for me, who usually had nothing but ugly, thick, tarnished copper coins in my pocket, it looked like gold. I didn't want to take it, but I hated saying numero. I glanced at the teacher, who kept reading with so much focus that he was dropping snuff from his nose. "Come on, take it," the boy whispered. The silver coin sparkled between his fingers like a diamond. To be honest, if the teacher hadn't seen anything, what harm could it do? And he couldn't possibly see he was glued to the newspaper, reading furiously, full of anger. "Take it, take it." I looked around the room and caught Curvelo staring straight at us. I told Raimundo to wait. It seemed like he was watching us, so I pretended not to notice. But after a moment, I looked again, and how strange the mind can be. I saw nothing at all. Then I got my courage back. "Give it to me." Raimundo slipped the coin into my hand quietly, and I dropped it into my pants pocket, my heart pounding with a feeling I can't explain. There it was, right next to my leg. I had one last thing to do, teach the lesson, and I didn't waste time doing it. And I did it well enough, at least on purpose. I passed him the explanation written on a small scrap of paper, which he took carefully, paying close attention. You could tell that it cost him 5 or 6 times more effort than normal to understand something so simple. But as long as he avoided punishment, everything would be fine. Suddenly I looked over at Curvelo and shivered. He was staring straight at us, with a smile that seemed cruel. I tried to act natural, but just a moment later, when I glanced back at him again, he was still watching us, his face even worse than before. Worse yet, he started shifting in his seat, clearly impatient. I smiled at him, but he didn't smile back. On the contrary, he frowned, making him look truly threatening. My heart pounded hard. "We need to be very careful," I whispered to Raimundo. "Just explain this one part to me," he murmured. I motioned for him to stay quiet, but he kept asking, and the coin in my pocket reminded me of the deal we'd made. I explained what he needed, trying not to make it obvious what I was doing. Then I looked back at Carvello, who now seemed even more suspicious. His old evil smile had gotten worse. It looked almost dangerous now. Of course, I was nervous too, wishing desperately for the class to end. But today, the clock moved slower than ever, and the teacher paid no attention to the students. He was reading newspapers, article by article, interrupting only to shout opinions, shrug his shoulders, or tap his hand on the desk once or twice. Outside, under the blue sky above the hill, flew the same old parrot, turning from side to side, as if calling me to join him. I imagined myself out there under the mango tree, books beside me, the stone in my hand, and the coin safely in my pants pocket. I wouldn't give to anyone, not even if they begged me. He'd hide it at home and tell my mother I found it on the street. To make sure I didn't lose it, I kept touching it, running my fingers over its edge, almost reading its markings by feel, dying to take a good look at it. "Oh, Mr. Pilar," the teacher suddenly bellowed, his voice like thunder. I shivered as if waking from a dream and quickly got to my feet. I saw the teacher standing there, staring at me with a serious face, newspapers scattered around, and next to the desk stood Carvello. It felt like I understood everything at once. "Come here," the teacher shouted. I walked over and stopped in front of him. He looked straight into my eyes, deep and sharp. Then he called his son. The whole classroom had gone silent. No one was reading anymore. No one moved. Although I didn't take my eyes off the teacher, I could feel the curiosity and fear in the air from everyone else. "So are you taking money to do other students' lessons?" Policarpo asked me. "Me?" "Give me the coin this classmate gave you," he demanded. I didn't obey right away, but I couldn't deny it either. I kept shaking badly. Policarpo shouted again, ordering me to hand over the coin, and I couldn't resist anymore. Slowly, I reached into my pocket, pulled it out, and gave it to him. He examined both sides of the coin, breathing hard with anger. Then he stretched out his arm and threw it into the street. After that, he said many harsh things. He told us both that we had done something ugly, shameful, and a real disgrace. And for that reason, we would be punished as an example and a lesson. Then he grabbed the ruler. "Please, sir," I begged, my voice breaking. "There is no forgiveness. Give me your hand. Now. You shameless boy. Give me your hand." "But, sir." "Be careful, it'll be worse." I offered my right hand first, then my left, and I took the hits one after another until there were 12. My palms turned red and swollen. Now it was his son's turn. The punishment was the same. He didn't spare the boy anything too. 4, 8, 12 hits. When he was done, he gave us another long lecture. He called us shameless, disrespectful, and swore that if we ever did this again, we would get such a punishment that we'd never forget it. He shouted, "Filthy boys! Rude troublemakers! Without any sense of honor." As for me, I kept my face lowered, looking at the floor. I didn't dare to look anyone in the eye. I felt every pair of eyes on us, watching. I sat down on a bench, sobbing, still feeling the sting of the teacher's harsh words. The classroom was filled with a heavy silence, like everyone was holding their breath. I can say for sure that no one wanted to mess with the teacher that day. Even Curvelo, who usually acted so tough, looked shaken. At first, I didn't look at him, but deep inside, I had already promised myself I'd punch him in the face as soon as we got outside, no doubt about it. After a while, I glanced his way. He was staring at me too, but quickly turned away, and I think he turned pale. He tried to act normal again, reading out loud, but I could tell he was scared. He kept shifting in his seat, fidgeting, scratching his knees, his nose in a thing to keep still. Maybe he even regretted telling on us. Why did he do it anyway? What did we ever take from him? "You'll pay for this," I kept thinking, as sure as the sun rises. When the school bell finally rang, we all left. He rushed out ahead of me, almost running. I didn't want to fight right there, on Rua da Costa, near the school. He'd wait until we reached the wide street by San Joaquim. But when I got to the corner, he was gone. He must have hidden in a hallway or ducked into a store. I checked a few places, even asked some people, but no one had seen him. That afternoon he didn't show up at school at all. At home, I didn't say a word about what happened. To explain my swollen hands, I lied to my mom and told her I hadn't studied my lesson. That night, I fell asleep angry, wishing both Boyce Curvelo and the one who dropped the coin would disappear. And guess what? I even dreamed about the coin. In my dream, the next morning, I found it on the street and picked it up without a second thought. No fear, no guilt. The next day, I woke up early. The thought of going back to look for the coin made me jump out of bed and get dressed fast. It was a perfect day, one of those bright May mornings, with golden sunlight and a soft breeze. Plus, I was wearing a brand new pair of yellow pants my mom had bought me. All of that, plus the little silver coin, made me feel like I was walking on air. I left the house like I was heading for a throne. I sped up my walk so no one would get to school before me, but not so fast that I'd wrinkle my pants. Oh, those pants were something special. I kept looking down at them, dodging people on the street, avoiding any trash or mess that might ruin them. On the way, I ran into a group of soldiers from a rifle battalion, with the drummer up front beating his drum. I couldn't just ignore that sound. The soldiers marched fast, perfectly in sync, left, right, all to the beat. They came, passed me by, and just kept going. I felt a strange itch in my feet, like I had to follow them. Like I said, it was a beautiful day, and that drum, it got to me. I looked left, then right. I don't even remember how it started, but I began to march too, keeping time with the rhythm. I think I was humming something, maybe Rato Nakasaka, who knows. Anyway, I didn't go to school. I followed the soldiers instead. Later, I wandered down to Saudi Street, and by the end of the morning I found myself at Praia da Boa. When I got home, My pants were ruined, my little coin was gone, and I didn't even feel upset. That coin was nice, yes, and it was Raimundo and Carvalho who first taught me about corruption and betrayal. But none of that mattered. That stupid drum had me under its spell.
Thank you for listening so far. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like our channel and click the bell to be notified whenever a new book is read. Have you heard of Machado de Assis? Machado de Assis, born in Rio de Janeiro in 1839, is considered one of the greatest writers in Brazilian literature and a master of psychological realism. He was a novelist, poet, playwright, and short story writer whose works explore the complexities of human behavior with irony, subtlety, and deep introspection. Among his most famous novels are Dom Casmurro, which questions truth and memory, and the posthumous memoirs of Brás Cubas, a satirical narrative told by a deceased man. Machado's literature often reflects the contradictions of Brazilian society, addressing issues like race, class, power, and identity in a sophisticated yet accessible style. Despite being born into poverty and facing racial prejudice, Machado de Assis rose to become the president of the Brazilian Academy of Letters and a symbol of literary excellence. His sharp wit and profound observations about society and the human soul make his works timeless and universally relevant. Today, he is recognized not only as a Brazilian icon, but also as a world-class author whose legacy continues to influence generations of writers and thinkers. Machado de Assis shows us that literature can be both elegant and critical, intimate and universal, humorous and profound. His stories remain as powerful and thought-provoking today as they were more than a century ago. Machado is a treasure of world literature, and through his voice, we discover the infinite layers of the human experience.